I'm just starting with a blank piece of paper, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick sketch to show you that we don't have to have a photograph to work from. I'm going to put something, some mountains maybe in the background. I want something quite large here just to balance this right hand side. There we go, and the mountains will disappear. This will be a lake maybe, and bring something into the lake from this side. A bit of foreground land, bit of interest, a few rocks maybe in there, and then something in to balance the painting. I'm probably going to bring something in from this side, slightly higher than this side, so there's no instant link between the two sides, and then maybe run this off into the corner. I think I need probably a tree on this side. This is real time that I'm sketching now, and I'm just sketching very quick because I want to just create spontaneity in there. I can see there's a lack of balance on this side now, so I just need something interesting in there. Maybe the sky should be quite dramatic on this side, just to balance this tree on the left. So I've got a nice sort of composition now. There will be some reflections of these distant mountains, so just using the side of the pencil, a little bit darker in the foreground underneath this headland. And we've just about got a sketch. I'm quite happy with it. Needs something in here, maybe put some grasses in there and some maybe in there, and then this would be quite a nice large lake. There we go. So that's the sketch, very quickly done, very spontaneous, and will allow me to do a painting from that. I think the background will probably be blue colours and the foreground will be warm, possibly browns and greys, maybe even a touch of golden yellows. So there's the plan for the painting, done in a few seconds. Okay, so transferred a little bit of sketch onto the paper now, and on the palette I've just got raw sienna, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue and a touch of Payne's grey. What I want to do is start with the sky. I want to make this painting quite dramatic, so I'm going to put in some warm colour into the sky up there. I'm going to bring that colour right down into the painting so that it's fairly uniform, in that it's got this tone throughout. I think that's important sometimes, to have that link between the bottom of the painting and the top, and indeed throughout, by just adding a similar colour all the way through. I'm just going to add some burnt sienna into the sky, and I want this to be quite a colourful sky, so I'm just dropping some warmth into that, and again I'm going to reflect that in the water below. Right, to add some dark I'm going to use ultramarine blue and a touch of burnt sienna, and that will give me a nice dark warm grey, which I can add into the sky now and put some nice cloud on that right hand side. Remember, I wanted it to balance this tree on the left, so there's the cloud into that warm sky. On this left hand side I want it to be quite subtle because that's where the tree is going to go, and if I have it too dark on this side as well, I won't see that tree against the background. Now I'm just tapping the brush on the towel just to dry it a little bit and soften off and lighten that area around the mountains, because I want to try and get some mountains in there with a soft edge, not too hard, because if it's too hard on the top they'll look too close to me. I think that's the sky just about finished. Just take out some of those white areas, and I'm quite happy with that sky. I'll leave it as that for now, not too much messing around with it. I'm going to go back in now. I want some distant mountains, so these are going to be quite cool, so I'm using a mix of cobalt and ultramarine, and then I'm just adding a touch of warmth into that, just a grey. So I've got a nice blue grey for the distant mountains. I don't want these mountains to be as warm as the foreground hills or land, so I'm just adding a touch of this blue grey into there, and then I'm going to add some more water just to tone it down a little bit, and it's nice and soft and gives the impression of something in the distance rather than close to us. So you can see nice and pale colour added in, nice horizon, nice line where it meets the water. What I'm going to do now is just add a little bit of colour into that, little bit of Payne's grey, and I'm just going to darken off in some areas the peaks of these mountains, maybe on the shadow side, just to give a little bit of variation in the distance. And then water, dab the brush on a towel and just bring it in and run that colour that I've just put on and soften it off into various areas of those distant mountains, and it'll just give the impression of a variety of tone and colour in the distance. Now I need to reflect that in the water, but before I do that I just want to strengthen the watercolour a little, so just with a touch of raw sienna I'm just going to strengthen up the water, and then I'm going to add in a touch of the Payne's grey underneath the mountains, just as a reflection of what's above really. But remember to go round these foreground hills, because that will leave them blank, ready to add some nice tone in there later. So there we go, I've got the water finished. Just leave a nice little line of clean paper beneath the water in those distant mountains, and it will just be amazed at what difference it makes. In the foreground I want to reflect that dark cloud in this top right hand corner, so in the water, nice and dark, and just reflect that cloud above. Okay, these hills are going to be quite warm, these foreground hills, so I'm just adding some warmth now, a mix of raw sienna and burnt sienna. I'm just going to add some warmth into the water beneath those, because it will reflect those foreground hills. So again, some warm colour and just reflecting these foreground hills, and just stroke gently down into the water, pull the colour down, and it'll give a nice effect. Okay, so we're just about there. What I want to do now is dry off, use the brush just to dry off some of this paint along the edge of these foreground hills. There we go, they're nice and dry, wet, but I want it to be dry so I get a nice hard edge. And that's one technique for just getting the dryness just about right, ready to add foreground colour. Now this foreground colour is quite strong and quite rich, and you can see I'm mixing up quite a strong colour for this. This is a mix of Payne's grey and the burnt sienna. Get a nice strong mix, and that way it won't soften too much into the water or the background. So I'm just bringing this foreground land in from the left to balance up the right hand side. Same colours, just adding to that all the time a variety of colours. So I've got a nice change in colour, a little bit of dark maybe into there, and it just gives this foreground a little bit extra richness. I'll bring it out into the water, and same on this side, bring it down to the water's edge. And I've got a nice variety in there, although I'm just going to add a little touch of the raw sienna and burnt sienna just to give some browns in this foreground. Same on this side, not too wet because I don't want it to run into the water too much. I want it to be quite hard edged. Okay, so there's my foreground land just about finished. I want some nice darks along the bottom of that land just to make sure it looks as if it's wet as it enters into the water. There we go, there's the darks as it comes in, just changing slightly. I'm going to put some darks on this edge, and maybe just using the corner of the brush just to put a couple of bits of rocks and outcrops of small areas of land in this foreground. Just using the corner of the brush, tap and let it spread, and it'll go quite soft on the edges. Well, we can touch that up with hard edges if we like later. Just about finished. I want to put a tree on this right hand side. I'm going to use the edge of this large brush to start with. I'm going to change the rigor as I get to the ends of the branches, but for now that's fine. I want a little tree softening off slightly in this area. I might put some leaves and bush type effect onto this slightly distant tree, but this one wants to be quite hard. So I'm going to take now a rigger brush, plenty of strong paint, and I'm just going to add to the ends of those branches that I've already put on, and bring this tree right up and out towards the top of the painting. It's quite a nice effect. Be quick with it, because if you take your time it'll look too neat compared to the rest of the painting. And this is a very quick, rugged looking painting. That's the effect I'm trying to create. Maybe put some more detail into there. Okay, so we're just about finished. I might pop some autumn leaves on top of that tree. Just take some raw sienna, burnt sienna mix, not too strong now, and I'm just going to tap using the corner of the brush, a little bit more warmth, tap using the corner of the brush I'm just going to pop some leaves around the top of this tree and out of the top of the painting. There we go, and a few bits of something happening close to us in there. Okay, so there we go. Just need to let that dry now and add a little bit more crispier detail into the foreground. Right, it's dry now. I've just dried it with a hairdryer. What I'm going to do now is take the flat brush, stab it on the paper. I know you're not supposed to do this, but I want a really rough looking brush. And then I'm just going to touch into the paint. I'm being quite rough with this brush. Stab it into the palette, and you'll finish up with a nice brush for painting some grass into the foreground. Just stabbing into the painting and creating a row of foreground grasses in this bottom right hand corner. So there's some interest in there. I'm just going to pop something in from this side. Same sort of technique, using the same brush with a range of colours. When you stab into your palette, if you stab into 2 colours and then push hard, your brush is filled with 2 or 3 colours on the end of those bristles, and it's a great way of putting in some foreground detail just to add depth to a painting. And just flick up some of these grasses. And then using the rigger brush, just a few detailed taller grasses, dark colour. I'm using burnt sienna and Payne's grey to create a really dark brown, and then I'm just going to flick some of these colours into this painting in the foreground just to make them look like small shrubs, branches coming up in between these grasses. And we're just about finished. A very simple lakeland scene done from memory, straight from a pencil sketch. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll just have a quick look around the painting and have a look at the detail. Well, there you go, there's the finished painting. I hope you enjoyed that very quick demonstration of how to work from a freehand sketch up to a finished painting. You can see the sky's quite effective by dropping in colour very quickly and very wet, and then the mountains, very simple blue colour just to give distance. The foreground, you can see the tree where I used the corner of the brush to create the leaves, very quickly painted, and then the foreground just added extra detail using a brush with quite strong paint stabbed into the palette to make it quite spiky. It's quite easy to create a grass effect using that method. Okay, well I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and I hope you'll be back soon. Bye for now.